In this weekly Forex forecast, I will be doing a complete multi-time frame analysis of all the hottest currency pairs that can give us trading opportunity in the upcoming week. Now, before we go to the in-depth analysis, traders, as you have seen in our previous weekly Forex forecast, also we expected DXY to drop and then to bounce back up, and we see the market played almost exactly the same way. In the upcoming week, also we are expecting DXY to play out as expected, along with many other instruments that you will be trading, including gold and euro dollar, GBPUSD as well. So before I go to the in-depth analysis, traders, make sure that you give a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't done yet. In addition to that, also join the free Telegram channel. You can find link below this video for more educational content and ideas like this. So with that said, let's begin this week's weekly Forex forecast. Okay, traders, so let's begin with DXY. First of all, as DXY can give us clear direction about most of the USD pairs. And first of all, we'll be looking at the higher time frame to see overall picture in the market, and then we'll be looking at the lower time frame to see how we can find trading opportunity. Looking at the monthly chart on DXY, what we can see that from the monthly, this is a monthly bearish price action at the moment. After the previous monthly bearish candle, this month we can see so far with a healthy body and also long wick at the bottom, expecting DXY to bounce back up to fill that zone and then to drop back down. This is the previous monthly support on DXY, and I think that we can expect DXY to go up to fill some of this zone and then to drop back down. Dropping down to the weekly chart to see a bit more clearer picture. From the weekly, we can see there is a weekly doji formation. If we look at the overall picture, we can see that there is a weekly drop followed by pullback, and previous week we saw a bearish engulfer that had crossed this narrow doji's high, and then we can see a big drop followed by this week we saw a doji formation. Now this doji is quite significant, as we could see that the market is going up initially to break this high and then to fill that FVG, and then what I think that later this week we might see further downside to fill that week on the lower part of this doji or to remain another doji. Dropping down to the daily chart to see how the market is doing, we can see that from the daily, this is the daily drop followed by this pullback. Now in this pullback we saw 1 2 3 4 days of narrow green candle has given DXY a pullback. So we can see a drop, pullback, and expecting DXY to go up again to fill that zone and then to drop down again to retest this support level. From the 4-hour perspective on DXY, what we can see that there's a long wick candle here, and I think that from the lower time frame DXY might create this pattern in that area before it bounce back up. So this week what I think that DXY initially may bounce back to that level to fill that fair value gap and then to drop down to retest this liquidity zone. If we closely look at, we can see that there is a narrow red candle which is a high liquidity zone. As the price moves from liquidity to liquidity, expecting DXY to grab liquidity from here and drop down to this liquidity zone. This could be the wave this week on DXY. So based on that, let's now analyze other USD pairs, starting with euro dollar. Looking at the monthly chart to see overall picture in the market on euro dollar. So this is the monthly price action. So far we can see a bullish candle. previous month's monthly candle that has formed series of higher low in that area, and we can see that this month so far an initial strong bounce to the upside with a healthy body, and also there is a long wick at the top on the monthly on euro dollar, and expecting for this price to drop further for a deeper pullback and then to bounce back up to create a new higher high. Dropping down to the weekly chart on euro dollar, we can see that from the weekly perspective there is a long wick doji. Also there is another long wick at the bottom. I think that euro dollar in the beginning we can expect for initial downside, as we see that this doji after this bullish engulfer followed by a doji can represent a continuation pattern, and with that continuation pattern expecting euro dollar to break below to grab liquidity and then to bounce back up to create a new higher high. Dropping down to the daily chart on euro dollar, what we can expect for the price to break below again, as we are expecting DXY to bounce back up, we can expect euro dollar a mirror, and for the price to drop down to potentially retest this daily 20 EMA, which is an important area of value, aligning with this previous resistance here, which is turning support here, and then to bounce back up to the major direction of the trend. So dropping down to the 4-hour time frame, we can see that euro dollar is forming series of lower high with multiple liquidity grab, which may give a momentum towards the downside on euro dollar, expecting for the market to break below to fill that fair value gap and then to bounce back up to create a higher high. So this is where I will be waiting for a potential rejection on euro dollar. As soon as we will find suitable entry, we will be looking for going long with a high probability trade setup. Now let's look at AUD USD. Let's see what kind of opportunities, starting with the monthly chart on AUD USD. Now from the monthly, we can see that there is a monthly bearish engulfer. It's a massive bearish engulfer, and followed by this month we can see the market drop back below, and we can see a strong rejection from this level on the monthly chart. And with this rejection, expecting for this price to move back up further before dropping back again, and I think that we might see initial downside to retest the monthly support and then expecting it to go back up again for long-term perspective. Dropping down to the weekly chart, we can see that from the weekly time frame there is a weekly doji formation. Now this weekly doji is also significant, as we can see there is a weekly drop pullback, expecting for the price to drop back down again for retest. This is the monthly support on AUD USD, and we can see also the weekly support. If we dropping down to the daily chart to see how the market is doing, we can see that from the daily AUD USD, if you closely look at, we can see that this is a very strong bounce, and followed by last day of trading week we saw a narrow rejection. With that rejection, what I think that AUD USD may try to retest this support resistance and then expecting it to come back down to remain as the same pattern as euro dollar. Now dropping down to the 4-hour chart, we can see that from the intraday perspective on AUD USD, we can see this is a massive drop, bounce followed by a pullback, another bounce, pullback, another bounce, pullback, and the market is forming series of higher high and higher low. And with that structure, what we can expect on AUD USD for the market to retest and then to drop back down and then to bounce back up. So this could be the wave on AUD USD. Now let's look at British Pound US Dollar. Let's see what kind of price action we have, looking at the monthly chart to see overall picture in the market on British Pound US Dollar. Now from the monthly, we can see that previous month there is a long wick candle. This month so far a candle with half body and half week, which is basically a potentially so far bearish price action. And I think that this month we can expect another retest of this resistance before dropping down. Looking at the weekly chart, we can see that from the weekly time frame, every week there was a series of lower high on British pound US dollar. And as we can see this week, we can see the price tested the support, expecting now a deeper pullback to the upside on British pound US dollar. Dropping down to the daily chart, what we can see that from the daily British pound US dollar, there was a previous day a bullish candle with a liquidity grab followed by a doji. And I think that this week we may see that British pound US dollar testing and then moving back to the resistance level as the price has got a bounce from an order block. If we look at the intraday perspective on British pound US dollar, we can see lower time frame price action. There is a break of structure consolidation, and I think that now, as you can see, there is a double bottom formation on British pound US dollar in this important support level, expecting British pound US dollar to retest and then to bounce back to the upside to create a higher high. This is where we will be looking for potential trading opportunity in British pound US dollar. Let's see dollar CAD. Let's see what kind of trading opportunity we have. Looking at the monthly chart on dollar CAD, we can see that from the monthly perspective, there is a strong breakdown on the monthly on dollar CAD. And I think that this month we can expect now further pullback before breaking below again. Dropping down to the weekly chart, we can see that there is a weekly strong rejection, and after this bullish move we can see that dollar CAD has broken below, and I think that this week we might see initial drop and then to bounce back up to the long-term direction of the trend. Dropping down to the daily chart, we can see that there is a daily drop. Last day of trading week, a doji formation, and I think that now the price initially expecting it to retest this previous resistance above this doji is where there is a high liquidity zone, and with that daily support we can expect dollar CAD to bounce back up. Looking at the lower time frame price action, we can see that there is a still in this 4-hour time frame there is a downtrending market structure. The market is forming series of lower high and lower low, and in this downtrending market structure for this price, I think that we can expect, as you can see, it is here forming series of lower high. It's here maintaining bearish structure, expecting dollar CAD to come down, break below, form that bearish price action, and then to bounce back up to create new higher high. Now let's see what kind of opportunity we have on gold. And gold, as you can see, past week was very volatile, expecting this week as well gold to remain highly volatile. Looking at the monthly chart on gold, we can see that from the monthly, this is the monthly candle, and in this monthly price action we can see there is a long wick at the bottom, and with that long wick expecting gold to retest this resistance and then to drop again, as this resistance is very important level on gold. And with this resistance retest on gold, expecting for the market to drop down to create new lower low. Dropping down to the weekly chart, we can see that from the weekly past week there is a doji formation with a very narrow body with series of lower high formation on gold. And what I think that in that area, expecting from the weekly, this is a narrow doji, and what I think that with the market open we might see initial bounce, as the momentum here is still lower time frame bullish, and later this week I think that gold may come down for wick fill. As you can see, there's a long wick here. We might see initial bounce coming down for wick fill and then continuation to the upside. Dropping down to the daily chart on gold, what we can see that from the daily, this is the daily bullish engulfer, followed by last day of trading week a narrow green doji, and this green doji is quite significant as a bullish engulfer followed by a narrow doji can represent a potential short-term continuation pattern. And I think that gold expecting to bounce, to retest, and then to drop down again for long-term perspective to fill that some of this area. Looking at the 4-hour chart on gold, we can see a very important liquidity zone. There is a weakless candle here. If we drag that line to that liquidity zone, we can see that, which is a very important liquidity zone. And we have seen there is a bounce followed by this pullback with narrow doji formation. And with this doji formation, last session we saw a bullish engulfer with a strong liquidity grab on gold. Last session we saw also a narrow red candle. Expecting gold to bounce in that area to retest this liquidity zone. So what I think that with the beginning of the week, gold may bounce back to the resistance, and then expecting it to drop down to fill that weekly long week on gold. If we drop down to the daily day trading time frame on the 15 minutes chart, we can see that this is a very strongly bullish market structure on gold. We can see a bounce, pullback, another bounce, deeper pullback. We can see the market is forming series of higher high and higher low. We'll be waiting for gold to grab good amount of liquidity. As you can see, this market structure is still maintaining that bullish, expecting gold to come down to retest and then to bounce back up to create a new higher high. And I think that this could be the wave this week for gold initially to grab liquidity, bounce back up, grab liquidity again to drop down to fill that long week. So based on the trend and price action confirmation, we will be looking for entry opportunity on gold, especially with the market open. We will be looking for going long with a high probability trade setup. Traders, if you enjoy this analysis, make sure you give a thumbs up. And also, if you want to learn the strategy that you are trading and also be part of the trading community, don't hesitate to visit the website. You can find link below this video. Once you are on the website, make sure you click find out more to have more information about how you can be part of the trading community. So now let's look at ENPR, looking at GBPJPY, looking at the monthly chart to see overall picture in the market. Now from the monthly, we can see that GJ, as expected, there was a significant drop in this market in the past 2 months. After the monthly bearish candle this month, we can see that the market has dropped back to that support level. And this month, let's see that weekly perspective, how the price is doing. Now weekly, we can see that quite a few weeks, very strong drop here with a weekly doji formation. And this week, we can see a candle form that has a very narrow wick at the top. And I think that this week, we might see the market to bounce back up, grab the liquidity, and then to come down to fill some of this long wick here on GBPJPY. Dropping down to the daily chart, we can see that from the daily, this is a very strongly downtrending market structure on the daily. The market is forming series of lower high and lower low, and it's a typical downtrending market structure on GJ. And last day, we saw a narrow rejection. This market is still maintaining bearish market structure. And I think that with the market open, we might see initial bounce to grab more liquidity and then to drop back down again to the support level. Now, from the intraday perspective, from 4 hour, we can see that on GBPJPY, this is a typical structure in that area on GJ. And what I think that with the market open, expecting GBPJPY to bounce, grab liquidity, as we can see quite a few dodges here, which is an important liquidity zone, and then to continue to the long-term major direction of the trend. And that could be the wave on GJ. As soon as we will find suitable entry, we will be looking for going short on GBPJPY with a high probability trade setup. Now let's look at dollar yen. Let's see what kind of price action we have on dollar yen, looking at the monthly chart to see overall picture in the market. Now from the monthly, we can see that dollar yen is back to back 2 months significant drop, and I think that this month we might see this week initial bounce before trying to fill some of this long week at the bottom. Looking at the weekly chart, we can see that on dollar yen from the weekly, this is significant drop on dollar yen. And last week we saw a doji formation. If we closely look at, we can see that this doji is significant, as we might see with this rejection a bounce and break of this high, and then to drop back down to fill some of this zone here on dollar yen. Dropping down to the daily chart, we can see that from the daily perspective on dollar yen, this is a downtrending market structure. There is a drop, pullback, drop, pullback. The market is forming series of lower high and lower low in this market. And we will be waiting for dollar yen for the market to bounce, grab liquidity, and then to drop down again. From the intraday time frame, from the 4-hour perspective on dollar yen, I will be waiting for initial bounce as of DXY, grab liquidity, and then to drop back down again to create a new lower low. This is where you will be looking for entry opportunity on dollar yen as soon as we will find suitable entry opportunity. Now let's look at US30 and Nasdaq. First of all, looking at the US30, looking at the monthly chart to see overall picture in the market. Now from the monthly, we can see that US30 is in long-term bullish market, followed by a pullback. We can see another bounce, followed by last month we can see that there is a healthy body with a long wick at the bottom, and expecting US30 to bounce further to the upside. Now looking at the weekly chart, we can see that from the weekly a doji formation, and with this doji, what we can expect on US30 for the market to initially to bounce, grab liquidity, and then to fill some of this zone before moving back towards its long-term major direction of the trend. Now dropping down to the daily chart, what we can see that on US30, this is the daily drop followed by this pullback with a narrow doji formation, and we'll be waiting on US30 for the market to grab liquidity from this 20 EMA and then to drop back down again to create a new lower low. From the 4-hour perspective on US30, we can see that this is where there is a strong bounce followed by a pullback. I will be waiting to see that US30 grabbing liquidity, breaking the weekly high, and then dropping down to the support level, and then to maintain a long-term uptrending market structure. This could be the wave on US30 in the upcoming week. Now let's look at Nasdaq or US30. Let's see what kind of opportunity we have, looking at the monthly chart to see overall picture. Now from the monthly, we can see that from this monthly support, there is a bounce here with a long wick at the bottom. And what I think that on US 100 for the market to bounce back up further before coming down and fill that some of this wick at the bottom. Now looking at the weekly chart, we can see that from the weekly, quite a few weeks of drop, followed by last week with a long wick doji. And with that long wick doji from the weekly, expecting for the market to break above before dropping down again to create new lower low. Now dropping down to the daily chart on Nasdaq, we can see that a bullish candle followed by narrow doji we can expect for the market to bounce before dropping back down again on Nasdaq. Looking at the intraday perspective, we can see the market is approaching this level where there is a high liquidity. You can see there is a strong drop here, and with the drop, what I think that with the market open, we can expect Nasdaq to break above, grab liquidity, and then to drop down to retest this support, and then to continue to the upside. So this could be the wave in the upcoming week on Nasdaq. So with that said, guys and girls, I strongly believe that you enjoyed this weekly Forex forecast. If you enjoy, make sure you give a thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Join the free Telegram channel for more education and trade ideas like this. With that said, thank you, and I'll see you soon in my next analysis.